Hey guys, Bass Ramos. And today the Miami Dolphins did not fare very well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They ended up losing 45 to 17. And it was a relatively like loose terms here, relatively close game up until the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, the game got turned on its head and it was just completely like lopsided. Aside from that, I feel like, some things went well in the Dolphins' favor, but more so than not, the Buccaneers had the better odds on their side, I guess you could say. Let's go over into some stats real quick. Jacoby Brissett went 27 of 39, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 3 times for a loss of 13 yards. And then you have the guy on the other side of the field. You guys all know his name, Tom Brady. He went 30 of 41, 411 yards, 5 touchdowns. Five. And no interceptions. He was sacked twice for a loss of 15 yards. Blaine Gabbert got in the game, but it was in the end of the game when it was already 45-17. 41 yards. This, I feel, was one of the biggest factors in this game was not limiting Tom Brady. I mean, the receivers on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster is very good. And you played them without having Gronkowski on there. I mean, if you would have added another weapon for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, the score would probably be like 70 to like 10, honestly. It just was not the best offensive. The Dolphins offense could not keep up with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. That's plain and simple what happened. And then Tampa's front seven is probably one of the better front sevens in this league, so it definitely does not help when you're facing that. Speaking of front seven, they really denied the Dolphins' rushing game. And it's a mix of both. Dolphins didn't run the ball that much. They only had 9 carries, 39 yards as a team, 25 yards of 5 carries for Myles Gaskin. Running the ball hasn't been a focus for the Dolphins and has been overlooked, especially because you get down in a lot of these games. And that same thing happened today. When you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as a team, 25 carries, 121 yards. Their leading rusher was Leonard Fournette, 12 carries, 67 yards, 1 TD. Giovanni Bernard, 4 carries. Ronald Jones, 5 carries, and both of them had 21 yards. Tom Brady, 1 carry, 13 yards. At one point, he had more rushing yards than the Miami Dolphins as a team. Not good, especially for a not so mobile quarterback in Tom Brady. Now, this is not good, neither or it's bad, but Myles Gaskin was the Dolphins' leading receiver today. 10 receptions, 74 yards, 2 touchdowns off of 10 targets. He caught every ball that was thrown to him, which was very good. But then you guys have guys like Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki and Jalen Waddle, who should be leading this team, especially right now with Devontae Parker out and Will Fuller also out in this game. It's definitely something that, those guys should have stepped up to the plate. Preston Williams, 3 receptions, 60 yards. Mike Gesicki, 4 receptions, 43 yards. Jalen Waddle, 2 receptions, 31 yards. I mean, it just wasn't the best game for the Dolphins receivers. Myles Gaskin did a bulk load of the offensive movement. At the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. Antonio Brown should have started him in my fantasy. I keep sleeping on Brown because one day he'll have a bad week. Next week, he just goes off. This case, he went off. I should have been expecting it. 7 receptions, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns, longest was 62 yards. Something that hurt the Dolphins a lot was their man-to-man defense. And it's Miami Dolphins' bread and butter, especially with this Brian Flores defensive game plan that he's been installing in this team. Yes, when you have that high-pressure man-to-man blitz type of thing and you have other corners playing man-to-man and safeties and so on and so forth, it's good if your pressure can get there. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers picked up the pressure. And then Tom Brady is just going to pick you apart, especially, he just knows, okay, I have Antonio Brown coming across. I'm Xavier Howard. Yeah, Xavier Howard's a good corner. But Antonio Brown's one really fast, got hands, and he can make plays with the ball. So he definitely trusted Antonio Brown this week. Next was Mike Evans, 6 receptions, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin, 7 receptions, 70 yards. And Giovanni Bernard got 2 receptions, 14, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. Those are only other touchdowns. That's the reason I mentioned him. Turnovers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got 2 turnovers. One was an interception. That was Jamal Dean. He returned it for 6 yards. And then Jacoby Brissett fumbled the ball, and Dominican Sue got on top of it. It was a close one. Miami Dolphins almost recovered it, but at the end of the day, Tampa Bay Buccaneers got more guys in the pile and ended up working in their favor for them. Defensive leading tackler for the Dolphins, Jerome Baker, 8 total, 7 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 QB hits. Jerome, tough game from Jerome. He was getting targeted a lot by Tom Brady, especially early on in the game. Just got picked on him. Like, they sent Leonard Fournette in motion, and then next thing you know, Jerome Baker's kind of late to his assignment, doesn't pick up Leonard Fournette's motion as soon as possible, and then he's playing catch-up, and then he misses the tackle. So it's just like compounding mistakes. He got pretty much beat on a halfback angle route by I think it was Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette, one of the running backs. I think it was Giovanni Bernard. That's what resulted in that touchdown from him. So he was definitely getting picked on, but the whole defense as a whole was just getting picked on. I mean, sometimes, pretty good stops, letting them overthrow or just forcing Brady to throw errant throws. But at the end of the day, you got beat 45-17. I mean, fell apart in the fourth quarter, but that can also be said about the offense. Defensively for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Devin White, 8 total, 5 solo. That's pretty much it there that I want to touch on that subject. Punt returns, nothing happened there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jason Sanders, 1 for 1 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. What was it called? Ryan Suckup, 1 for 1 on field goals, 6 for 6 on extra points. Apparently, Bradley Pinion attempted. I think that was the one before halftime. That was about a 60-yarder. That pretty much sums it up. Michael Parley, 4 punts, 154 yards, 1 in the 20. Longest was 44. Bradley Pinion, 1 punt, 41 yards. It was in the 20. So that sums up the stats for this game. Miami drops to 3rd in the division, especially after New England won today against the Houston Texans. Buffalo still remains in first no matter what happens tonight against Kansas City Chiefs. New York Jets lost today in London. So Dolphins are in 3rd. Buffalo's first. New England second. New York Jets last. Now for the NFC South, Tampa Bay improves to 4-1, furthering themselves. But they have to wait for Carolina to play today and New Orleans. That game is winding down, but they're on top. So they should end up 3-2. Carolina's game is still depending. Atlanta 2-3, just beat the Jets today in London. So those are some things looking into what happened this week, at least in terms of AFC East and NFC. I think it's South. Yeah, NFC South. So let's go over some things that I said that are keys to victory for the Dolphins. Keep things consistent offensively. I think they did that. I think they were really not hesitant on running the ball and more persistent on passing the ball, and I think that was good. Hurts when you don't have 2 of what your expected top receivers in the game. But the Dolphins have pretty good depth in their wide receiver room, and it's not looking good right now. Even with these injuries, I feel like that depth is not looking good. Their performance is not up to par. So I need to emphasis more on running the ball, chewing that clock, especially in a game that, you're going against one of the best offenses in the NFL, and then you have one of the better defenses in the NFL as well, especially stopping the rush. They're number 1 ranked in stopping the rush. So they made some changes. I think Godsley was just directly calling plays into Brissett's helmet, but at the end of the day, started off good. Fourth quarter just got completely annihilated, honestly. Mistakes just compounded. And that was the next thing. Limiting mistakes, turnovers, penalties. 2 turnovers. I believe they scored on both of the turnovers. I'll tell you exactly right now. But penalties, feel like some penalties hurt the Dolphins, others not so much. Okay, let's see. Fumble led to the missed field goal at halftime. Okay. Interception, touchdown right after. These turnovers definitely hurt the Dolphins. And then you talk about penalties. There wasn't too many penalties. I'll tell you exactly how many there were right now. There were 5 penalties resulting in 37 yards for the Dolphins, 6 penalties resulting in 47 yards for the Buccaneers, almost at Patriots. Yeah, I mean, the penalties weren't that big of a deal for this game. So turnovers, especially when you are allowing turnovers and you're not forcing them yourself, that definitely hurts your team. Get to Tom Brady defensively. Overall, not the best. They slightly achieved it, but wasn't very great. They had 7 QB hits. Um, they brought him down twice, so I guess you can say they kind of did it. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're not bringing him down on key downs like third down, they did it one time or twice the entire game. The rest of the time, it was just Tom Brady, calm, cool, and collective in the pocket, loading up, finding his guys down the field. Wasn't very good. Shut down the wide receivers defensively, especially with no Gronk. Didn't do that whatsoever. Tony Romo kept on touching on this during the game. He was the one commentating it with Jim Nantz. And he was basically saying, press the receivers, especially if you're doing this blitz. Give your, especially because they have the safeties in the back behind them to back them up. Give them a second or two to, determine which way to go, so on and so forth. You got to slow these receivers down. And the Dolphins did not do that whatsoever. Antonio Brown was just running free. And then if you put an emphasis on Antonio Brown, you let up Mike Evans, and then it just rotation. Which receiver is going to get the ball next? And Brady picked the Dolphins apart doing so. Sucks to lose. Sucks to be 1-4 for the Dolphins. Great for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-1 on top of the division and one of the top teams in the NFC right now. But Dolphins are not looking good right now. Hopefully, they're speculating that Tua comes back for next week's game in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He could or could not play. It's honestly just how they want to speed him up through the process or not. If he's not ready, don't put him in, because then he gets hurt again, and then season's pretty much down the drain after that. But if Tua's good to go, put him in. If he's mediocre, close to being good to go, don't put him in. I think we can suffer or hopefully win a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, if you suffer a loss there, then yeah, your season's down the drain. You lose to one of the only other winless teams in the NFL. Not a good sign. That pretty much sums it up for this game recap. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully in the future Dolphins can perform better in these particular games against top tier contenders. So I hope you guys look forward to the rest of the season, and see you guys soon.